Chris is from Caltrans, as I said. He's a mechanical engineer, and he's the chief of engineering and production for the Caltrans fleet. He's been with them 27 years. So welcome, Chris.
Morning, everybody. Okay, let me give you a little background about what happened to us here a few years back. In 2011, our governor passed an executive order, actually issued an executive order, and he wanted a review of all of our state fleets. So in that review, there was a thought that state fleets were too big and that we weren't using them enough, so we should reduce. That was the overall thought. So we went through Governor's Executive Order B211, and within that, Department of General Services has the oversight over all of our department fleets. So whether you're in Caltrans like us, or forestry, or corrections, they're in charge of everybody's fleet, oversight. DGS hired a consultant company, Mercury. Everybody heard of Mercury Associates? Sure you have, okay. Mercury has a vehicle allocation methodology program, which they use to go through all of the state fleets, one by one, every vehicle one by one. We went through this methodology. At the end of that, what happened to Caltrans is DGS reduced our fleet 1,324 pieces of equipment. That's about 10% cut for us. So after we went through the reduction, had our heartache in it, we decided that we needed to start a group to look at better utilizing our equipment. And out of that, we started a group. We called it our first group. And the goal was to, like I said, to better utilize the equipment. And like everybody, I'm going to click through this one. Like everybody out there, you have loads and loads of fleet data, right? You can run these reports, and they're huge. Caltrans has about 12,000 pieces of equipment, and you can run these reports, and they're just absolutely huge. You could have all this data, but there's no real fast way to run through the data to get anything quick out of it, okay? So what they focused on was principally three things. Was how old is the equipment? That was the first one. And how much are we using it over its life? And then the last one was how much are we using it over the last year? So they came up with a scoring system for this. There's a 3-digit scoring system, and this is how it works. So your first score, your first number in here, the X, that tells you how old the piece of equipment is, okay? Second number, Y, tells you how many miles or how much life you've used up in that piece of equipment over its standard, right? And the last one was how much did you use it over the last year? So each one of these is a 1 to 5 score, kind of like an Amazon 5-star rating, right? So if you got a 0, that's brand new. If we're looking at the life, that's a brand new unit. If you got a 5 on that, it means it's used up all of its life, its age life. So say if it's something like a sedan where we might say it has a 10-year life, and maybe it has 150,000 mile mileage life, use life, so you want to use it 15,000 miles a year, right? Okay. So 1 through 5 score, if it were, say, a 1 on the life, it's about, what, 2 years old, right? Same way with the use. If you got a 3, you're at about 60% of your usage, so you would have, I don't know, 60% of that 150,000 miles. Okay, pretty simple concept, right? So this all started with our maintenance division, who actually developed this score. And when we saw that division of equipment, we thought, you know, you need one more thing to look at real quick. You need to look at how much money we're spending on repair. So we set a repair standard at 50% of its capital value. And we did the same scoring system. So now we have a 4-digit score, our fleet utilization score. And let me show you some examples. Okay. Here's the score. These are real scores, by the way. These are graders. This is a maintenance class. Our maintenance class, we describe a specific type of equipment. So for a sedan, it'll have a maintenance class number. For a grader, it'll have a maintenance class number. And you'll have several vehicles within that maintenance class, right? But these are scores for individual units. So the first one here, 4453. Can everybody see that? Okay. What does that tell us right away? What's the 4 tell us? 80% of its life is gone, right? 80+%. Second score, the next 4 tells us 80% of its life use is gone. The next score, the 5, tells us we got a lot of use over the last year, right? Everybody following along with how these scores go? It takes a minute to get used to them. And the last one, the 3, we're at about 60% of our repair cost standards. So real quick, you can go, I'm using the unit, I'm using it a lot in the last year, and it's not costing me a lot of money. So right away you can go, that's a pretty good unit. And the thing about the 4-4, the first 2, they tell you that I'm using it kind of at the same rate as it's aging. Okay. So the next unit, this 4-4-4, it's pretty good shape too, right? Quick looks, pretty good shape. Let's go down here. Look at this one, 4115. Is that a problem? That's a problem right away. It says it's getting old. I'm not using it very much over its life. I didn't use it very much at all last year. And I got a lot of money into it. Okay? Well, look at this group of 4115s. And what's interesting about this, if we go over to this report over here, we find they're all in the same district. So when you start looking through these numbers, you can look at them really quick, and you can start to pick out things really quick. If I look at this row down here, these are all out of District 7. I'm going to pick on my District 7. But they've got some other units that are in good shape. They're old, but I don't have a lot of money in them, right? So they're a pretty good grader, but I'm not getting any use out of them. So if I looked at this group here, I can start to ask questions about, do I have opportunities to do something else? Should I reduce some of these? Should I move them, right? I should do something else. Or maybe I reduce them and I turn them into a piece of equipment that I really need. And it's a quick way to start to look at these to say, should I be doing something else, and am I having an issue with these units? Okay. Same group of data. These, like I said, these are on a vehicle basis. These are newer units. If we look at the 3s here, let's look at this first score, 3451. What does that tell us? Tells us we're using it faster than it's aging, right? And I'm using it a lot, the 5. Over the last year, I'm using it a lot. It's only got a 1 on the repair, so it's in good shape. It's a good unit. It's working really well for us. Okay? Let's jump down here to maybe a 3131. This one, I'm not using it very much. Got the 1 score. Not using it very much over the last year. It's a good unit too, but I'm not using it. So maybe there's an opportunity I swap these 2 units so I level out the usage of it over its life. This last report is rolling up a whole maintenance class and taking the average score. These are kind of neat. So this is a whole maintenance class. It could have 2 to 5 or 2 5 units. It could have 100 units in it. Could have 1,000 units in the maintenance class. But it tells you the overall score of the maintenance class. So let's look at some of these. This is a bus. It's got a 511. What does that tell me about my buses? It tells me they're old. I'm not using them. And I haven't used them very much in the last year. So right away I can look at my bus fleet and say, I probably need to do something about this. I probably either need to reduce it, I need to change it up, I need to do something else. If I go down here to pickups, there's a pickup, 552. What does that one tell me? This is kind of the audience participation part here. What's it tell us?
End of life.
The end of life, they're old. Look at this. Let's pick some of these out. There's the pickups there. There's another group of pickups, half-ton pickups. Let me go down here further. Here's some more half-ton pickups. Within those 4 groups, I probably have over 1,000 pickups. And they're all 5.5 something. What does that tell me about pickups? Tells me a train's coming, right? On the fleet side and replacement side, for a budget, a train is coming. It's either going to cost us a lot of money to repair them, or it's going to cost us a lot of money to replace them, and we should be thinking and planning about it right now. So, anyway, that's a quick look at how we've come up with a utilization score. It was developed by our maintenance group. It seems the more you play with the numbers, the more things pop out at you. It's a quick way to look at a lot of data really fast and at least give you an idea you need to go look. It doesn't give you the answers, right? You got to go dig back and find out what's going on with that specific vehicle to get the answers. But it gives you a quick look at it's a red flag, basically. Now, I know we had somebody yesterday that talked about the red, yellow, green reports. This is kind of that. Okay. Questions?
Do you share those scores regularly with end users? Do they know what their score is?
We just started doing this. This was just developed. And so now, I'm at the point where when a vehicle comes in or we're asking questions about a vehicle, I'll go look at the score. And one of the things that we're hoping to see happen is when you bring a vehicle in to get repaired, look at the score, right? Because if you're, like on some of those, if you have a motor grader that you just blew an engine, it's going to cost you $30,000, and you find out that it's old, right? You can look at the score, and you find out maybe you're not using it, then you got to ask yourself, should I repair this? Should I even invest in the $30,000 to repair it? Because maybe there's another unit that's not being used, I'll just swap it with it. So that's another value in it. Utilization standards, we've had them for quite a while. And in fact, and this is on every maintenance class that we have. And one of the things that it kind of forced us to do after we went through the VAM and reviewing all the data was to relook at those standards. Because we have vehicles that we would have expected, say, a 15-year life, and maybe they're really not ever getting there. One example was on the hours and the mileage. We were setting our replacement standards, I think, on motor graders at like 10,000 hours. And what we were finding out is we were never getting 10,000 hours at point of sale. And so we had to go back through and look at all of our real numbers, when we sold them, what kind of condition they were in, and re-look at just how many miles or hours we thought we'd really get out of them. So it's based off of a lot of historical data. That's where the numbers are.
Chris, did Caltrans ever consider using maybe 2 years or 3 years of historical use versus one? Because what we hear all the time with our underutilized equipment, well, Bob retired and we're hiring his position, or we didn't have any snow, or remember we had that big slide so we couldn't use our mowing equipment because of that. So we always get that excuse of why they couldn't use it over 1 year, but it's harder to bury the excuse when it's spread over 2 to 3 years of utilization.
Yeah. I will say that we're brand new at developing this and looking at it, so we're new at trying to see what it's telling us. But I would say if you have a low overall life use score, it gives you an indication that it's just not a 1 year event. You could have had a bad year or a low winter year, and you would have gotten a low score in the winter. Mm-hmm. As long as the life score were high, you'd say, well, it's just, it was that 1 year. But if the life score is low, it's usually a pattern at that point. Yeah?
So Chris, with your example on District 7 and the motor graders, have you utilized this to actually start removing equipment from a district or changing things, or is it to the point that, hey, people be aware? Where are you at in that part of the process?
We're just starting that part of the process. Our fleet is, I don't know if we're any different, but how it works is we assign vehicles out to a program. And I say our maintenance division would be a program, and they'll have, say, 6,000 vehicles. They're really responsible, have been responsible for the use of the vehicle and moving the vehicle around and the sharing and what have you. Just like you guys all know, nobody likes to share, right? Nobody likes to share. You tear up my piece of equipment, I get it back, it's broken. The unfortunate thing with that is that if you don't share and you don't use the equipment, eventually we're going to lose it. And so we're at the point now where saying, we're looking on the division of equipment side, we're looking, and if you're not using it, we're going to come move it for you. We're going to work it out with somebody else who does have a use for it, and we're going to have to move it. And that, so what's happened to us is just recently, we have to go through, when we request a new vehicle, we have to go through the whole acquisition process. It goes up through our director, up through agency level on the transportation side. Once they approve it, it goes back down and it goes over through agency level on the DGS side. So at that level of approval, what is happening, and this just happened within the last month, we had vehicles that we requested to replace. They looked at our fleet use and they said, these vehicles, some of these vehicles are underutilized within the same category, so they denied our whole acquisition plan. And so the message is, if you have vehicles that you're not using, don't ask for new ones, because you're not using the ones you have. So it forces us to go make sure we're using the vehicles we have, because we're not going to be able to replace them otherwise.
Very good. Thanks, guys.